Hello, I'm Zeke, and welcome to the Zekely Podcast. Let's talk Pennsylvania. The guest I have today grew up in Boston, Massachusetts, but has lived in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania since the early 90s, helping to spread democratic values across the Commonwealth and around the world. He's been called a political consultant, political operative, and political strategist. But currently, he's the executive director of the Pennsylvania Democratic Party. Thank you so much for being here, Mitch Kates.
I'm Zeke, a doctor, a Pennsylvanian, and an unapologetic supporter of democratic values. You might have seen me on social media working my ass off for Democrats and meeting some pretty amazing people along the way, like President Barack Obama and Governor Josh Shapiro. For years, I've knocked thousands of doors all over Pennsylvania and poured my heart and soul into supporting candidates and causes that make a difference, from local school board races to national elections. The personal is political, and I take every election in Pennsylvania personally. Where the mainstream media has failed you, I will give you truth and independence. You'll hear from Democratic leaders, candidates, and change makers who are working to improve the health of the Commonwealth, and it won't be boring as hell. No matter where you are, I'll meet you with hope and a plan to make your community better one day at a time. Welcome to the Zekely Podcast. Let's talk Pennsylvania.
Zeke, it's my pleasure. Proud to be here. I enjoy your show, and your show matters, my friend.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited that you're here. You do so much for Democrats in Pennsylvania, so we're going to get to know all about you and have some fun. Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, before there was Mitch Kates in the political arena, there was Jason the Terrible in the wrestling arena. I have to know the backstory to your professional wrestling career.
My professional wrestling career started when I was a little kid, like a very little kid. For as far back as I can remember, I used to watch what they call TV wrestling back then. We all lived in like my grandparents' house, and my aunts and uncles lived downstairs, and my older cousins would watch it and use me as a punching bag. But I loved it. And as I got older and I went into grade school and junior high, I started wrestling. And I'll say my first year wrestling, I weighed like 120 pounds. I kept going through junior high into high school, where I grew a bit, but for a while I was still not great and I wasn't very athletic. And, I eventually went from being awful to decent in high school to college. I just kept working hard at it. And so I was able to represent my college at the New England Championships at heavyweight. I defeated the previous year's heavyweight champion.
Nice.
And then came October of the year after I graduated. And for those that wrestled, you know that usually around October 1st, you wake up sore.
Mm-hmm.
And I woke up October 1st, the year after I graduated, and I didn't wake up sore. And I felt like something was missing. I had met a guy, one of the most famous villains in professional wrestling, Killer Kowalski. And I met him during the summer between my senior year at some wrestling. It was like a fundraiser. And some friends, we all went to see it. And so I went to the school that he taught professional wrestling. Ironically, it was in the town of Malden, Mass, which is where I'm from. I was born in Malden, Mass.
Nice.
And so I started training to be a professional wrestler. I had many gimmicks, and one of the gimmicks that I really loved, because somebody at the school just said, you guys look like you're related. And all of a sudden I became Killer Kowalski's nephew, and I wrestled as Mitch Kowalski, and which was awesome. I mean, the honor of my life to be Killer Kowalski Jr. And then one day, Killer Kowalski Jr. was wrestling a guy named Jason the Terrible, and it was a big match. And so I get in the ring with this guy, as we would say, blew up. He got tired, and the match ended within 10 minutes. And then the next day I went by the school, and Kowalski's sitting there, and he had this very strong voice. And he would say, "That Jason is a schlep. I fired him, but I have a new Jason." And I'm like, "Who?" And he said, "You." And I'm like,
Nice.
"What do you mean me?" There was a match coming up in a couple of weeks, and it happened to have been on Friday the 13th.
Oh, that's perfect.
Right? And the Jason was the main event. And one of my colleagues, wrestling colleagues, said, "Oh, I have a bunch of hockey masks," because he used to play hockey. So he brought me a mask. He brought me this mask.
There it is. There's the Jason mask.
This is the original mask.
That's the original one you wore in the ring?
This is the original mask that I wore. But eventually I had to go to a different mask because, as you can see, there's a big crack on that mask.
I see there's a big crack in that, yeah.
Right. And that crack happened when I was wrestling in a match up in Maine. I'll never forget it. And Kowalski was the guest referee. So I turned around and I went, and I headbutt him, and he leaned into it and crack. and he fell like a sack of potatoes, like right onto the mat. And so then I got disqualified. I go back into the locker room, Zeke, and there's this legend, and Walter was a very big man, and he's sitting straddling a bench. He's holding his head, and I'm like, "Hey, Uncle Walter, are you all right?" And he looked up at me, and his eyes were spinning. He goes, "God damn, my teeth are rattling." And I'm like, I am really sorry. He goes, "No, bullshit. That was real. That was beautiful." And he was happy about it. I probably gave him a concussion.
I wrestled when I was in middle school and high school, but I was terrible. I mean, I won one match, I think, the entire time I did it. And then I stopped, like, I think in 10th grade. So you had a much more successful run than I did. My God, what a story. Well, we're going to play a game called the Catchphrase Quiz, okay? I'm going to give you some catchphrases, and you're going to have to name the wrestler. So let's see how big of a fan you are, okay?
Are they old school catchphrases? Because if you go at me with some new ones, I'm going to fail this.
I think you're going to be okay. Based on the story you just told me, I hope to God you know these, all right? I am the game, and I am that damn good.
That sounds like something that Mr. Perfect would say. Or Kurt Hennig, maybe.
I mean, I don't know if there's any cross using catchphrases at all, but I did a lot of Googling, but evidently Triple H said that a lot.
So fun fact about Triple H.
Okay.
Number one, he went to Walter's professional wrestling school.
Okay. So you shared that. Okay.
But he showed up on the scene like 2 years after I moved from Massachusetts to Pittsburgh.
Okay.
So he and I never met. And then China too. She also went to the school around that same time. But I literally missed them by maybe 2 years.
Well, let's see if you get the next one. What about I'm the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be?
Oh, that's Bret Hart.
You got it. Bret the Hitman Hart. Got that
Bret
one.
the Hitman Hart. And I wrestled Bret quite a few times.
I mean, it must be a really small world in wrestling. You kind of know everybody when you're in it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you got one right, one wrong so far. I have two more. I think the next one's a little too easy for you. Rest in peace.
The Undertaker.
The Undertaker, right? You got that one. All right, here's the last one. Give me a hell yeah.
Oh, that's Stone Cold.
Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah,
you got it. All right. Well, you know your catchphrases. That's very good.
Most of them.
Mitch, what have been some of your accomplishments as executive director of the Democratic Party?
We have a very, very small staff compared to other states, like shockingly small. But we have a team of warriors. I have, in my opinion, best digital director in the country. I have the best data director in the country, Young, who before we found him, he did Andy Beshear's campaign in Kentucky.
Wow.
Right? He's done some really, and he's wicked smart. And then Kate Ahern is our deputy political. You know these guys because they're the ones doing their rapid response stuff.
Yeah.
And my God, man, like we hadn't done anything on digital for a long time, quite a few years. And I've been trying to, I worked towards getting Lenore in because I knew when she got here, man, she was going to, and she was forever my secret weapon. But now a lot of people know who Lenore is. Yeah. And she just keeps cranking the shit out. And those guys are so gifted working together, like as a unit, and they're putting together like the content, the direction of it, the messaging behind it. And then Lenore puts the design around it. Our viewership has exploded since they started in like February. It's really remarkable.
No, it's great. I love making what did PA Democrats do this week? I love making video versions of that.
Yeah. PA Dems are not just the staff. They are the entire ecosystem of the Pennsylvania Democratic Party, all the way down to a local committee person.
Yeah.
And when you treat it that way, then people feel more included. We're not perfect. We have a lot of warts and all. And, there's so many things that we could do better, that we need to do better. Right. But we attack this again with a tiny team compared to other states. We're a tiny team, but we're not fucking around. Like this is important work.
Yeah.
And we have to be able to provide as much resources as possible. And, the information we're putting out on social matters so much because so many people are getting their political information, online. And which in some ways is unfortunate because a lot of it is absolute bullshit.
Yeah.
And people don't know. And they think, like the sky is purple. That's why
we have to flood the zone. And that's why I'm doing the podcast to keep people focused.
Correct.
You named your business company after your motto, Think Big. So what do you have a secret to big thinking? What's your secret behind that?
I mean, I know it sounds corny and shit, but it's literally thinking big, thinking outside the box. Like, one of the things that I'm very famous for is when people tell me there's no way in hell, Mitch, then I get stubborn. That race that I did against B. Brian Blair, I had members of the press who had knew me by then, like off the record would say, Mitch, why are you doing this with Kevin? Like, Kevin's going to get killed. The fact that he's running openly gay, he's going to get killed. And other, like some of the big Democratic donors in there are like, this is an important seat and we can win it. We have to win the seat. And, Kevin's nice, but there's no way he can win. And I just stubbornly would say to every last one of them, Kevin Beckner's going to win because he's running as an openly gay candidate. And they didn't know. Well, first of all, they thought I was nuts. And then the first finance report came out, and a first-time candidate for a local county commission race raised like $48,000.
That's a
A
lot.
friend of mine who was thinking about getting in that race, and he called me up. He pulled the finance report. He's like, dude, who the hell are these people?
Yeah.
I don't recognize any of their names. And I said, asshole, I told you Kevin's going to win because he's running as an openly gay candidate.
Yeah.
Who do you think these donors are, man?
Yeah,
And by the way, they're donating from Florida.
Yeah,
they're donating from other states because we're reaching out to donors that care about gay candidates. And the moral of the story is that not only did Kevin Beckner win, but one of my friends that worked on the Obama campaign said Kevin outperformed Barack Obama in Hillsborough County, number one. Number two, since Kevin, there are, like, I think in St. Pete across the bridge, at one point, I think they had like 4 openly gay city councilors. The mayor of Tampa is an openly gay mayor, right? Like, it opened the floodgates.
Yeah. I mean,
because somebody was brave enough to step into the fray, and I was stubborn enough, or I just believed. I thought big.
You thought big. You thought big. Yeah.
That we can win this race, and we did.
It's very inspirational. I like your motto. I think it's great, and clearly you've carried it from your business time all the way through your political time, and I think more people should think big. And I'm glad I'm glad you're thinking big in the Democratic Party. You have led winning campaigns all over the world, including for prime ministers of countries in Georgia and Kosovo. So, Mitch, how the hell did you get dragged into international elections?
That's a great question. For years when I became aware that there were these things called international, and I had heard about, Americans and some people that I met that did international campaigns. I'm like, well, how the hell did you get that gig, right? So just as I was about to go back to work with some friends and that would have brought me back to Pittsburgh, I got an email from I've always considered him my senior political guru, my Yoda. Craig Smith is his name. And for those that are really paying attention to the whole political world, he was the original Clinton person. And when Clinton was in the White House, he was his political director and deputy chief of staff. I mean, he's been to the mountaintop.
Yeah.
And then Craig was doing a lot of international campaign work too. And so one day I opened up my email and I got an email from Craig. It was the end of January 2012. I still have that email. I will never lose that email. It said, send me your current resume and get your passport ready. That's all it said. And I replied like, dude, can you tell me like what's going on? Because I was just telling somebody I go back to Pittsburgh, but what's happening? So they picked up the phone and he called me and said, well, there's this race in Georgia. It's not the Georgia you think. It's the Georgia on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
And we're working with the opposition party and we need a guy on the ground. And I think you're the right guy. And then he said, can you be in Washington tomorrow before noon? Because one of the opposition party leaders is at Patton Boggs and they wanted to meet with you.
That is wild.
So the next morning I got an early flight. I landed in Baltimore and took a train down, and I got to Patton Boggs 10 minutes early, which was a miracle. I sat down and there were 2 principals. One of them was Tommy Boggs, the named partner on the largest lobbying firm in the country at that time, and another principal, Larry Harris. And then there was a woman sitting on the other side of the table, and she happened to have been a representative of one of the opposition parties. And so I asked a couple of questions, and then on my right ear, I hear Larry Harris go, how soon can you get to Tbilisi? And I looked over at him, and then I looked slowly over at Tommy Boggs, and they both said, like, and simultaneously, if Craig Smith says you're the guy, you're the guy. How soon can you get there? And I needed to get my passport updated. Otherwise, I would have been on a plane like the goddamn next day.
Yeah.
But 2.5 weeks later, I flew from sunny Tampa I landed in Tbilisi, Georgia. It was 3 a.m. It was a snowstorm outside. I get in this, big SUV. I mean, dude, it's like right out of a movie.
That's
And
nuts.
yeah, and then I spent an entire year of my life
In Georgia.
running.
And you won. I mean, you won.
Yeah.
I guess politics, no matter where you go in the world, if you, as you like to say, think big, it's translatable, right? Yeah, I mean, different language, different culture. You were able to tap into what was necessary to harness the electorate and get it done.
Listen, the Georgian government, the voters feared the Georgian government. The minute that the opposition leader announced he was running for politics, was the president or prime minister at the time, he stripped him of his citizenship.
Oh my God. Well,
Then if anybody was suspected of supporting the opposition, their houses were taken and sold the next weekend. They were thrown in prison. All this crazy shit. I couldn't get anything printed in country. I did one infamous time I was able to sneak a print job, and I had over 1.5 million pieces of literature printed in the middle of the night without anybody knowing it. And then got it out across the country in the middle of the night. And I wouldn't let any of it go back to the headquarters because there were spies there and I didn't trust anybody. And so I pulled that off. But I was literally smuggling shit in from China. Once upon a time, I manufactured licensed product, and a lot of it was produced in China.
This is definitely book-worthy stuff. I mean, first of all, amazing story. And I have to say that the kind of stuff you went through in Georgia, I mean, there's a lot of crazy stuff happening in America right now. Certainly, autocratic type language, I'm sure that you saw in Georgia. And I'm really grateful that you're back here now because we need people like you who think big and can take on these giants who are trying to ruin this country. So what an incredible story, man.
But here's what's important, Zeke. In all the years that I've been doing campaigns and the time that you've been spending, one of the takeaways that we always say at the end of every election cycle is, God, I can't believe there weren't more people that showed up to vote, right? Even last year with the stakes so high and the obnoxious volume of ads and all that shit, it was still a low turnout election. So in that Georgian race, over 95% of the voters turned out. But it was done in free and fair election at the ballot box with no bloodshed. Not one person got punched, no rocks thrown, no cars flipped, no windows broken, no bricks thrown, no fires. It was people showed up. And the government, both governments, the times that I was there, fell because 95% of the voters showed the fuck up. And so imagine what would happen if the voters in this country showed up.
That's what I try to say over and over and over again. When people are throwing up their hands in the air and waiting for someone to come and save them, I say the buck has and always will stop at the voter. Always.
That's correct.
Always.
That's correct.
Mitch, why are you a Democrat, and why do you choose to represent the Democratic Party?
I don't know. I guess the long and short of it is that I have empathy and I care about people. And I didn't grow up in a political household at all. Not at all, Zeke. I did not. But, I educated myself. I was the first family member to go to college. And so it just became something that was important to me. And I mean, that's the long and short of it.
I love it. I mean, I think it's I think it is a perfect answer. I really do. I think it really encompasses what it means to be a Democrat, the values that we share. It's all there. I love it. What do you say to people who believe that the Democratic Party in Pennsylvania, or just in general, is lacking leadership? How do you combat that thought process? Because I just want you to know, I disagree. I feel like there is a lot of leadership in the Democratic Party, and a lot of this falls back again on the voters, right?
Yep.
If people want to see a certain political party or ideology in charge, you have to put them in charge. So what do you tell people when you hear that?
I 1000% agree with you, Zeke. And as I've been speaking at different events, as when I spoke at the Hands Off rally, right? I said, I hear this a lot. I'm sure many of you have heard this a lot. Where's our leader? Who's going to lead us through this? My answer is, we are the people that you've been looking for.
Right.
All of us. Like a pebble hitting a pond. one after another creates a ripple effect, and those ripple effects continue to build, and one ripple at a time until that turns into a tidal wave, right?
Right.
The leadership has to come from the people. We have so many incredible, accomplished leaders. Some of them are still in some ways just getting started, right?
Yeah.
Josh Shapiro, he gets shit done,
done.
right?
He does.
And he's one of these people that is doing counter to what so many Republicans say at all levels of government. Government's broken, the government doesn't work. And then you have elected officials like Josh Shapiro. So while Trump and his cronies are dismantling our government, like making sure government doesn't work for people, right?
Yeah.
By shutting it down in many ways, we have people that are ready, that are leading right now, that are running their states or fighting the good fight, who believe in government. They believe in it.
I want to bring up what you talked about earlier about committee people. And every single time I hear people say, who are the leaders? I tell them, I'm surrounded by leaders. I'm surrounded by people in the Democratic Party. You know, if you turn on CNN or MSNBC, you're not going to see your local committee person on there, but they're out there knocking doors. They're out there getting information to the electorate on who's going to be the sheriff, who's going to be the prothonotary, who's going to be your county commissioner. Anytime I hear people say that, I say, you go home, you go into the bathroom and you look in the mirror. And that's the leader. We are going to have to save ourselves.
Yeah.
And you're not going to see a shiny person coming on a chariot and fix the entire country. That's not how it works in a democracy.
That's correct.
In a democracy, the people are the leaders. And so I love your answer, and I agree with you.
And I witnessed it, Zeke, in Georgia and Mauritius. 95% of the voters showed up.
Can you imagine?
Overthrew a government that they were terrified of. The Georgian people were terrified of the government.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine that,
Mitch?
showed
up.
Can you imagine if 95% of Americans who could vote showed up to vote? I mean, it would be transformative. This country would progress in ways that would be unstoppable. Mitch, you're a man of many outfits. I gained access to another picture of you wearing a pink Boston Dun Kings outfit, the one that Ben Affleck and Matt Damon famously wore for the Super Bowl commercial. I assume it was was it Halloween or something, or what occasion was that? Just
I initially ordered it because, number one, it was the greatest commercial ever. It was a greatest commercial ever.
And you are from Boston.
And I'm from Boston. And so when I was working on the convention in Chicago, and it just got in my head, you know, like these things get in my head, and I can't stop it when they're in my head. And so I thought, it's going to be miserable. It's going to be incredibly hard. I'm going to be exhausted. It's going to be nonstop, but I'm going to find a way to have at least 10 minutes of fun.
Okay.
And so those 10 minutes of fun came in the form of this.
Putting on that outfit.
So what happened was there was a big welcome reception, and all the other states were there. And I was wearing like a black tux and a black shirt. And somehow, I don't know how, like I ended up being up on stage introducing people. Like, hey, there's Governor Shapiro from Pennsylvania. Come on up, Gov. And he'd come up and he'd speak. And then, hey, there's Nikki Fried, chair in Florida. Nikki, get up here. Where are you from? What county?
I grew up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, but I'm in Montgomery County now. Yeah.
You're in Montgomery. Okay. Yeah. So I don't know if you know him, but Senator Kane, John Kane, I think he's from Delaware County.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, he's from Delco. Yeah.
Yeah, Kane. So Emmett brings Kane in.
Okay.
And we show him the outfit. He's like, yeah, sure. So he put it on. I figured out what song to do. And Kevin had the DJ have it queued up. And he was able to like signal the guy before we came in. We're outside. DJ starts playing Dirty Water.
Okay.
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah. Boston, you're my town. He starts playing. This is like a random song. It was not what the regular music was that was blasting. And then, boom, we kicked the doors in loudly. And come walking in with our arms up in the air, and we're going, woo! And I also had like this fake bling, like a Celtics. Yeah. Because the Celtics had just won the title. And so at first people were like, what the hell's going on? And then the first person said, oh shit, that's Mitch, right? and some of the other states know me, and they're like, oh shit, that's Mitch. That's and then awesome. Some of the Pennsylvanians are like, holy shit, that's Senator Kane, you know?
What an entrance.
And then everybody wanted to take pictures with us. That was probably the only time I had fun that whole week, was that 10 minutes of doing that shit.
He did that's a great story. You managed David Weck's successful bid for the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, who was also standing for retention this November 4th. So what would you tell people to pay attention to these important judicial races?
I would tell them that back in 2015, that for the first time in the history of Pennsylvania, there were 3 open seats on the Pennsylvania Supreme Court out of 7, and that the implications and the significance of who was successful winning that race could have an absolute massive impact on the entire Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and quite honestly, even beyond the borders of Pennsylvania. Okay. Because Pennsylvania is one of the infamous battleground states, and then some believe, and I do, that Pennsylvania is the battleground state. And so as Pennsylvania goes, so goes the country, right? So back in 2015, one of the big reasons why it was important is only a few years later, you do your the census, and then they draw new maps, and that lasts for 10 years, right? And at the time, back in 2015, Democrats held over 1 million vote advantage to Republicans, yet they had 13 and Democrats had 5 congressional seats. Why? Because the maps in Pennsylvania were so horribly gerrymandered that they were able to carve them out that way, And frankly, elections that are decided before there are elections is not democracy. And so having fair elections in Pennsylvania was on the ballot. Being able to do collective bargaining was on the ballot. The environment was on the ballot. Education was on the ballot. All of these issues that affect people's lives every single day were on the ballot in 2015. 10 years later, those judicial members run for retention, and the voters are asked yes or no to retain. So usually during retention races, part of the reason why they stay non-political, non-partisan is because there's a mix of Democrats and Republicans standing for retention. And so nobody, you can't say vote no for this guy, but it's just complicated.
Right.
Well, this time, every judge that's up for retention happens to be a Democrat.
That's right.
So now it's the perfect storm for the other side to go and do this massive vote no effort, and just make up all kinds of bullshit about these judges. They had the audacity to say that, geez, they gerrymandered the maps. They're the fairest maps in the entire country. And the last election cycle proved it.
Right.
Because they took 2 of the seats that were Democratic seats that a Democrat won. So for the same reasons that were important in 2015, they all exist again, except the stakes are even higher. Because in these 10 years since, women's reproductive rights at a national level are gone. The organizing, and free speech and all of these other things are, in the balance.
Right.
The next maps will be up in a couple of years. Do you really want to have a court that will work to gerrymander the state? No. And that will affect the outcome of the big presidential elections too. And it was our state Supreme Court that shot down all of these bogus bullshit lawsuits that were happening. If it was not that way, a lot of nonsense would have happened and our elections would have just been, chaos. And of course they were chaos anyways, because, Donald Trump puts it out there to question the legitimacy of any single race.
Right. Yeah.
And he never stops doing that, which is such a threat to democracy, and people just don't understand why it's that much of a threat.
Yeah. But the Republican politicians know that the only reason why Pennsylvania stood its ground in 2020 was because we have the judiciary to stand its ground.
Correct.
They are the backstop to our rights. And I've made it a goal of mine to have every judge who is either standing for retention or a judge who's running statewide to be on my podcast. And so far, I've interviewed 4 of them.
Great.
And I hope to get 3 more on, but I appreciate you saying all those things because these elections in November, I mean, look, I say every election is the most important election, but these judicial races are crucial.
100,000%, Zeke, for sure.
Mitch, you're Jewish like myself, correct? We're both part of the tribe. Well, I take comfort in knowing that the majority of the American Jewish community still supports the Democratic Party and the ideals of its platform. But what do you say to the minority who feel that, either both sides are the same or that the Republican Party is somehow better suited for the Jewish community?
We're living in very, very trying, troubling times. And, I studied a lot about anti-Semitism and lived it in different ways. We all did, Zeke.
Yeah.
You did too. We all dealt with it.
Right.
And I certainly studied a lot about it. I was a history major in college, and I wanted to learn more about how the hell did this Holocaust thing happen and all the, everything about it. And so the warning signs that exist right now that are telltale signs of what happened in the 30s and early 40s, and
Right.
people that that's not what's happening. You're just being it over the top. No, I'm not being over the top. I'm being very real. These people are not geniuses that have thought of new ways of doing politics and running governments. They are stealing it from others that came before them. It is very, very obvious. And yeah, I've had conversations with folks that are Jewish that are like, it seems like, the only people that are standing up are like Donald Trump and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, take a really good look really look at what's happening in front of your face. Look at the administration that he's surrounded himself with. How many of them are literally white supremacists?
Right.
How many people has he broken bread with that are anti-Semites, violently anti-Semitic, right? And so please don't get baited into believing that they actually really give a shit about us.
Right.
And, I don't like to get, I'm not the kind of person that wants to get into bait with people, Zeke. I don't like to, go toe to toe with some crazy Trumper and try to prove them wrong. I don't engage in those conversations. I will engage in thoughtful conversations where, a true conversation can happen. I'm on the executive board of DJOP, which is Democratic Jewish Outreach Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
What a group of thoughtful individuals from all across the Commonwealth who spend a lot of time helping, elect Democrats.
Right. Shout out to Jill Zippin real fast.
Shout out to Jill Zippin, the chair. And I was so honored when they asked me on the board, and I became one of the vice chairs of the board. And we are doing good work, and we're the only organization like it in the country, So
yeah,
Pennsylvania's got a lot going for it.
Yeah. No, I appreciate all that because it really hurts me, from a Jewish perspective to see what Republicans and Trump is doing to the country, and also just, stoking this anti-Semitic rhetoric. And actually, this dovetails nicely to this trivia game I like to play with you called Coexist Trivia, where I'm going to give you some scenarios and you're going to tell me where the political party falls. This is going to be really easy for you, I promise. Okay. So based on the legislation and rhetoric, which political party in Pennsylvania at the state level favors equal treatment of all faiths? It would be the Democratic Party, Republican Party.
The Democratic Party.
Right, and the Democratic Party, because the Republican Party often favors Christian norms, based on their legislation. Or how about based on their legislation and rhetoric, which political party in Pennsylvania at the state level favors Christian nationalism? Republican Party, right? The Democratic Party opposes that. And lastly, based on the legislation and rhetoric, which political party in Pennsylvania at the state level favors public religious neutrality? Neutrality. Democratic Party, right? The Democratic Party favors separation of church and state.
Correct.
While the Republican Party often blurs the lines. So for me, as someone who is Jewish and who respects all different faiths, I know that the Democratic Party in my own state is safer for me as a Jew and all religions. What gives you hope?
As long as there's breath in my body, as long as there's others like you. Like when I was just volunteering, I met so many amazing people, from presidential candidates to elected officials to celebrities. And last year, it was 2 days before I was going to Chicago, and some guy called me and he's like, "Hey, Mitch, so there's a celebrity. He's been traveling the Midwest. He just wanted to do something. He's been going to all these different offices to just go there and give, pep talks. And he's in Ohio and he's going to cross into Pennsylvania." And I thought maybe you could help. And I'm like, dude, I have to leave for Chicago. I have no time. I'm totally overwhelmed right now. I don't have a minute. And I'm like, well, who is it? And he said, Sean Astin. I'm like, well, why didn't you start with that? Mikey from the Goonies.
Yeah.
Rudy from the movie Rudy.
He was huge. He was huge on the
Sam, from Lord of the Rings. Right? That's Sean Astin.
Yeah, he's huge.
So Sean Astin shows up at the house, and God damn it, he and I texted each other 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And that kid, he's not a kid, he's close to my age.
Yeah.
But he's still very much a Goonie. And he's still very much that individual that really, like he lives that. And, they always say you don't want to meet your hero. And I've had many different heroes. Like Goonies has always been one of my favorite movies.
That's a great movie.
And like, he's like a brother to me now. And it just makes me feel like, I was just a kid. He was just a kid when that movie came out. And I've been saying this Goonies never said die expression for all these years.
Mhm.
I literally said in front of the Prime Minister Kosovo, he had no idea what the fuck I was talking about when some of his people were saying, oh, we'll never be able to do this. And I looked around, I said, Goonies never say die. And the Prime Minister's like,
what are you talking about?
I don't know what you mean. I said, you'll see.
Yeah. And you showed him. Well, my last question for you, Mitch, is what plans do you have to get yourself through these next few years?
Just to, keep focused, eye on the prize, trying to get some exercise in, trying not to be as stressed out as I am, but I'm very stressed out, trying to be supportive of those people I work with, do everything that I can to help empower people to do what they need to do and to show up. Like when I told my wife, I said, I'm doing this podcast, she's like, you've been going all day. And I'm like, look, this is important. And frankly, I didn't expect this to be as engaging as it was, Zeke. And I thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is the beginning of a beautiful relationship, my friend and tribesman.
Yeah, absolutely.
You need to get your ass out here to the bat bar. We need to break bread properly and have a pint or two, or
sounds good,
or a wee dram or two. And I am so glad that you're connected with Lenore and the others. We're going to keep doing our thing so you can do your thing. And for those people that watch this, listen to this, for fuck's sake, please, this is our country. And as Sean Astin wrote on something he wrote for me, and it's a line from the Goonies. If you haven't watched the Goonies, Zeke, get your kids and sit down and watch the Goonies.
Such a great movie.
I don't know how old your kids are. It's a little scary, but watch the Goonies. And one of the lines is, this is our time down here.
In the well. They're at the bottom of the well.
That's right. This is our time. And so, like, we are in the bottom of a well. That's a really strong analogy. We are in the bottom of a well. And we have to get ourselves the fuck out of that well.
That's right.
And we can. We can. It's going to take a lot of hard work, but people need to show up, and we need to get fucking shit done, man.
I know we do. Look forward to doing the work with you. I really do.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
Well, Mitch Kates, Executive Director of the Democratic Party. If you were going to tell me 5 years ago I was going to be doing a podcast interview with the executive director of the PA Dems, I'd say you were crazy. But I just have to say, Mitch, you give me hope. And I love how badass you are. And it's people like you that are going to keep the ball rolling. Oh, you're putting on the mask. We've got Jason the Terrible.
It's time to suit up.
That's right. We're going to get shit done, and we're going to do it together. So thank you so much for everything that you do, Mitch. I really appreciate it.
You bet, Zeke. And keep the faith, brother.
We will. Well, thank you so much for joining me here on the Zekely Podcast. Stay hopeful and get involved. And until next time, let's keep building a stronger Pennsylvania together.